Campfire Classics is a classic literature podcast. However, your hosts will occasionally use not-so-classy language and immature humor to describe very mature situations. As such, listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Ken Sandberg.
And I'm Heather Michelle Lawler.
Welcome to Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. And we got one. We got a white Christmas, kind of.
We did. Well, it's
the most snow I've ever seen on the ground in Philadelphia.
Christmas Eve and there's snow here, yeah.
Yeah, it snowed at like 8 a.m. and it like dusted. I mean, it's all mushy and wet now, but I woke up and opened up the curtains and was like, "'Tis a white Christmas Eve."
And snow that like stayed on the ground, too.
I mean, I was just walking around and there were some patches of white. So, if you are in a place that does the snow thing, I hope you got a dusting or something like that. And if you're in a place that is not supposed to get snow, I hope you don't have it because global warming. Merry Christmas.
So this episode, if you are listening to it as it drops, finds you on Christmas morning.
Ho, ho, ho.
Which, for those of you who do not celebrate Christmas, is the catchphrase of a terrifying man in red who slithers down your chimney and messes up your house. Heather was not calling you a hoe.
I mean, can it be both? But he also watches you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake. I mean, Santa Claus is terrifying.
Creepy guy in red who slithers down your chimney in the middle of the night.
People are like, Krampus is the scary one. I'm like, Santa's just as scary. He just looks like he's not scary, which in turn is scarier.
He looks big and friendly. He's an older white dude.
Don't go there. He's like the guy on Family Guy who's like, "Hey, little boy. Come sit on my lap." I'm pretty sure he
Come
says
shit on my lap?
I said, sit on my lap. Okay, y'all, just so you know, I'm still a little sick. I completely lost my voice in Mexico when we were down for my cousin's wedding. It has been a solid week since I lost my voice almost.
Yeah, it turns out to be a really good thing we did that one episode an extra week out.
And I literally kept saying while I was down there, because I continued to talk to my family and stuff because it was a big family gathering. It was basically our Christmas. And I was like, I sound like RFK Jr. So I might have some things today. You said, come shit on my lap. It's just my sickness not giving me my beautiful, pristine voiceover voice today. I sound more like a sex voice, a sex operator or something.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like we're working a 1-900 number.
It's like, hi, how you doing? I got the Kathleen Turner overdrive, as Brandon Bruce would call my band when I'm sick.
So that. Anyway, we are spending our Christmas Eve with you, campers.
Hi.
We're doing this for you because we love you very much. How are you spending the holiday? That's what I want to know this week. How are you, or have you spent whatever holiday it is you celebrate this time of year?
Holiday
or holidays, whether you focus on the new year, or if you're a Hanukkah person or a solstice person or a Festivus person or whatever it is you do.
Yule, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever the hell you want.
What do you celebrate, and how do you celebrate in the long tradition of pushing back the doldrums of the darkest time of year? We want to hear from you. So email us at 5050artsproduction@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media. Just look for Campfire Classics Podcast. Actually, on that note, we had some people respond last week to our Peter and the Wolf tape book thing. In fact, a major supporter of the podcast and often one-man marketing team,
yes.
Doug.
Who? What? I've never heard of him.
reached out to say I don't want to out hipster you, but I had the Peter and the Wolf storybook on vinyl.
I think I did too. Like I was actually
Was yours
thinking,
on vinyl?
I think it was because I think it was my parents. Like it was like
mine was definitely a cassette.
I think it was like one of those little vinyls. Like I had one of those mini record
Oh,
players.
yeah.
Do you remember those things?
Sure do.
So I had a bunch of books on tape, but on
those little baby records.
Those baby records, and it was like a plastic thing, and I could
Yep.
like play it on there. I'm having so many in the past couple of weeks. I don't know what it is, if it's the holidays or just the world or whatever. I've had a lot of like core childhood memories like unlocked at like that have just been gone forever. Just by saying, I think I had it too. I just remembered that fucking like record player. It was so cool.
Was it the one that looked kind of like a tiny like suitcase or lunchbox
and you
almost?
Opened it
and
up,
you opened it,
and it came with all those like little mini records.
My friend Adam growing up had that.
Yep.
And he had mini records, including he had the movie Star Wars, but it was just the audio.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then there was a narrator voice who would, during the action sequences of the audio, do like narration of what was going on.
It's like a closed caption.
He also had the Elf, like the alien Elf.
Like 8 cats.
Like the cooking songbook.
Okay.
So it was Alf the chef, and he was singing songs about things he was doing in the kitchen.
That's hilarious. Okay.
But those were both for his little.
Yeah, I had a bunch of books, I remember, and like little books came with them. So like the book was like a square, and then at the back of the book, the record came out. So you could put the record on and you could read along with the record.
Oh, I
That's
like
what
that.
mine had. Like, so not only was it like a kind of book on tape, but it was also a like learn to read. Because like when you were learning to read, you could follow along. So if there was a word you didn't
know,
like,
then you heard
that's how you
someone else say it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, but not to one up you, Doug, but I think I had it too. Yours may have been like full vinyl. Mine was like made for kids vinyl, but
All right.
Thank you for writing in, because that unlocked a like core memory of mine, and now I want one of those again. Those things were cool.
So listeners, also, if you have a line on one of those tiny little briefcase record players, let us know where we can find that.
I'm totally going to search for that after we finish recording. That's really cool.
Anyway, Campfire Classics is not a podcast where we relive childhood memories.
Nostalgic toys.
Nor is it a podcast where we ask for your help purchasing those things.
Though if you want to become a patron, we do still have a Patreon. We don't plug it much, but
it's still there.
It's Christmas. Hey.
But no, what we do here at Campfire Classics, literary comedy podcast, is cold read short stories that we have pulled out of the public domain. We read them to you, sight unseen, no idea what the hell these stories are about before we start, which is why sometimes we end up with weird ass stories about talking socks.
Yep, that one. I actually loved that story. I thought that was great, especially for the holidays. So.
It was a sweet little story, but it was weird.
Yeah, some people don't like unanimated. Some people don't like inanimate objects to talk.
It's strange. Like, and there are some things that are easy to anthropomorphize,
like animals.
Toys,
because Toy Story.
Often they look like people anyway.
Yeah. But like socks are such a weird thing. Yeah.
Well, because the deeper we got into the story and the more I thought about it later, the more I was going, what are you talking out of?
Do they even have a mouth, or do they just like telecommunicate the way like aliens do?
Are they telepathic? In which case, are socks taking over the world?
Are socks like putting secret messages in our brains every time we put them on?
I really didn't like that.
All right. Well, we won't think about that. As you hang your stockings tonight for ho, 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 Santa, don't think about it too much.
Try not to think about it too much. Try not to think about what goes into those stockings or how they come out. And certainly in the morning, as you're reaching into that stocking
for your sweetmeats
to pull out sweet goodies, try not to think about the fact that is probably the hole that they speak out of and eat through.
So it's
and
like
poop out of.
it's like a snake.
It's a
It's
snake.
a full circle back to our snake hole experiment. All right. But what do we actually do? We're going to read a story,
so we're going to read a story. So
Yeah.
this week I have selected a story for Heather to read. And ordinarily at this point, I would take us to fun facts. But the truth is, this week I don't have a ton of fun facts.
Love it.
So continuing our Christmas ghost story tradition.
Yay!
Yeah. I have chosen a story for Heather to read, and there's not a lot of fun facts for me to share because past episodes we have covered in pretty great detail both the history of telling ghost stories
Yep.
at Christmas time and the life and times of this week's author, fan, and let's be honest, host, favorite, Mr. M.R. James.
I was hoping it was M.R. James. And we can again thank my mom for that because she found a book in my parents' basement
Yeah.
when we were staying with them during COVID when this podcast began of just M.R. James short stories. She brought it up and like it turns out he is the king of the Christmas
ghost stories. Yeah. So anyway, in lieu of fun facts about him, I'm going to take a shot of my happy Christmas juice here.
Yeah, Ken made a happy Christmas coffee. It
and-
smells really good.
And we're just going to get right to reading.
Let's
So
do it.
this week, it's a fun little ghost story called A School Story.
Oh,
Let's start
school's
this
out
fire.
for winter, not. A School Story by M.R. James.
Every time we see his name, it's because MR are his initials, obviously, but I always just want it to be Mr. James.
Mr. James.
Mr. James, excuse me, Mr. James.
Well, and he writes these ghost stories set at schools and stuff. Like
Yeah.
the first story we read by him was
It was a bunch of school kids.
school kids, the Wailing Well.
The Wailing Well.
Yeah.
The Wailing Well.
And if you want to listen to that, that's like way back in. It's like episode 4.
Yeah, that's early days.
Like that was very early.
That was before we switched over to these microphones.
Sure was.
That was back when we were recording in your parents' like attic above the
It was my
garage.
childhood bedroom.
Attic above the garage.
Yes. Yes. All right. Now we're in the room below the stairs, so we're Harry Pottering it. All right, let's
Yeah.
go.
Sound treated
Sound
closet
treated.
below the stairs.
Yes. A School Story by M.R. James. Two men in a smoking room were talking of their private school days. At our school, said A, we had a ghost's footmark on the staircase. What was it like? Oh, very unconvincing. Just the shape of a shoe with a square toe, if I remember right. The staircase was a stone one. I never heard any story about the thing. That seems odd when you think about it. Why didn't anybody invent one, I wonder?
Because people are boring.
You can never tell with little boys. They have a mythology of their own. There's a subject for you, by the way. The folklore of private schools.
You never can tell with little boys.
Is that a song?
No, it's what is it? It's in Winnie the Pooh. It's you never can tell with bees.
Oh. So it's just Pooh Bear. Okay, so we got two old men. Oh, one of them must be a writer because he goes, there's a subject for you
Oh, yeah.
to write about the folklore of public schools or private schools. And that's true. I mean, we're deep in our Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
And she goes to that like
Chilton.
hoity-toity Chilton, and now she's at Yale with a bunch of kids that went to like boarding school. And they're like, oh, yes, we did this and this and this. I mean, yeah, it's a whole separate world.
Yeah. Going to fancy schools.
Like in Switzerland. It's like, what? I'm glad I had my down dirty public education
Public school education, absolutely.
in Iowa. But, you know, it was still a public school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had kids get kicked out for, fights and drugs and hand jobs on the back of the bus. And
Oh, yeah, we had My senior year, I took a quilting class because I wanted an easy A art class and something that would be productive. So I learned to quilt because I already knew how to sew. And I think 3 or 4 of my classmates were definitely making baby quilts for their babies that were on the way. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, a little Lorelei Gilmore action. One of them was a Lorelei. Anyway, all right, the folklore of private schools. Yes, the crop is rather scanty, though, I imagine, if you were to investigate the cycle of ghost stories. For instance, which the boys at private schools tell each other, they would all turn out to be highly compressed versions of stories out of books. Yeah, boys have no imagination.
Yep, they just steal other people's stories.
Nowadays, the Strand and Pearsons and so on would be extensively drawn upon. No doubt. They weren't born or thought of in my time. Let's see. I wonder if one can remember the staple ones that I was told. Well, first there was the house with the room in which a series of people insisted on passing a night, and each of them in the morning was found kneeling in a corner and had just time to say, "I've seen it," and died.
These are all the stock ghost stories.
It's
the man, the hitchhiker with the hook.
It's the urban legends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't that the house in Berkeley Square? So yes.
Yep.
Urban legends. No matter where you were, there's like, oh yeah, I've heard that one. I dare say it was. Oh, then there was the man who heard a noise in the passage at night, opened his door, and saw someone crawling towards him on all fours with his eyes hanging out on his cheek.
Ow.
Ew. That's graphic.
Gross.
Damn. There was besides, let me think. Yes, the room where a man was found dead in bed with a horseshoe mark in his forehead.
Ow.
And the floor under the bed was covered with marks of horseshoes also. I don't know why. Also, there was a lady who, on locking her bedroom door in a strange house, heard a thin voice among the bed curtains say, "Now we're shut in for the night." None of those had any explanation or sequel. I wonder if they go on still, the stories.
That's always the question about ghost stories is so often you get basically the setup.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's this hitchhiker with a hook hand who goes around slaughtering people.
There's a tower in the room where you don't go. Like, don't go in the attic.
Into the room in the tower.
Like the attic, basically, or the basement. Like the scary, scary basement.
But these ghost stories, you rarely hear a follow-up.
No, there's never a sequel.
There's never a, like, oh yeah, like, I was on that road to look for the hitchhiker with the hook hand, and
had that experience.
And he slashed my tires or whatever. Like, you never hear that.
Or he was just like, "Hey, I'm just trying to get a ride. Can I get a ride?" Everyone's so scared of me. It's just society being shitty. There is some of that too. It's like Home Alone 2, the bird lady and the guy next door in Home Alone.
In the original one, yeah. What's his name?
Old man.
The Shovel Slayer.
Yeah. Old man, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like, it's these like stories about these people that are just, normal people, but it's like the witch next door, the lady who lives in the creepy house, that's single, and that makes her a witch.
It's because she has a cat. You know how cat ladies are.
I do. They're the best. All right, so we got these ghost stories. Oh, likely enough, with additions from the magazines, as I said. You never heard, did you, a real ghost at a private school? I thought not. Nobody has that ever I came across. Oh, so it's like, have you ever heard a first-hand ghost story?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. From the way in which you said that, I gather you have. Oh! I really don't know, but this is what was in my mind. It happened at my private school 30-odd years ago, and I haven't had any explanation of it.
Dun dun.
The school, I mean, was near London. It was established in a large and fairly old house, a great white building with very fine grounds about it. There were large cedars in the garden, as there are in so many of the older gardens in the Thames Valley.
Thames.
I know. As I said it, I went, that's not. I was literally on the Thames. Drinking a beer with Tomas like 2 months ago. No, it was like, that was like 6 months. No, it was August. 5 months ago? What is time?
November, 4 months ago.
4 months ago, I was on the Thames, and I have punted down the Thames. I have boated down the Thames, and
That
I
sounds
fucked it
dirty. Hey.
You want to punt down the Thames with me?
Hey, I've punted down the Thames. Wink.
There were a bunch of girls on a bachelorette party that when Tomas and I were sitting there drinking a beer, and it was like probably 10 girls and their gay friend. And I was and he was my favorite person on the boat. They actually went by and then turned around and came back. And it was the funniest thing. I was like, this is hilarious. That guy's just like, hey. He was very vocal.
Fulfilling stereotypes.
I mean, if I had ever had a bachelorette party, and I do not plan on having one, it would be mainly gay men. So, all for it.
We'll get you together with a couple of your New York friends, and
we'll go to New York and let them take me drinking at Marie's Crisis for my bachelorette. We'll have to let Ashley know. She'll come. I would arrange. That would be fine with me. All right. Beady boop boop boop. All right. So, the Thames Valley. Okay. There were large cedars in the garden, as there are in so many of the older gardens in the Thames Valley, and ancient elms in the 3 or 4 fields which we used for our games. I think probably it was quite an attractive place, but boys seldom allow that their school possesses any tolerable features.
True.
Again, boys have no imagination. They're just like, whatever. I came to the school in September, as you usually do. Mm-hmm. Soon after the year 1870.
1871. That'd be soon after, I'm just saying.
He's like, it was sometime in the 70s. I don't want to give my age away.
I don't need to be too specific.
Soon after the year 1870, and among the boys who arrived on the same day was one whom I took to a Highland boy, whom I will call MacLeod.
The Highlander.
Not the Highland boy.
Do you know the movie The Highlander?
I have never seen it, but you have talked about
Jesus
this
Christ.
before.
Okay, so first of all, sometime in early January, we are going to watch The Highlander.
Okay.
So, dear campers, you can look forward to a review of that.
Okay.
The Highlander
Isn't he a time traveler?
He's an immortal.
Immortal, okay.
So you move through a lot of time periods because he's immortal, but his name is MacLeod.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did they steal it from this story?
Probably only accidentally.
I love how many times we read stories and we're like, dude, 100 years later they made a show and just stole this shit.
Yeah, but he's a Scottish immortal named MacLeod.
A Highland boy named MacLeod?
Yep.
Oh my god. If he turns out to be like fucking time travel-y immortal boy.
Or immortal.
Then I'm going to have to make some phone calls.
So I want to hear either your best Christopher Lambert.
If he talks, I'm going to talk in a Scottish accent.
Or your best Sean Connery.
I mean, it's going to be terrible.
Who plays a Spanish guy in Highlander.
They set a show in Scotland and they had Sean Connery play a Spanish guy?
Yeah.
What?
I know.
It's like the one time he actually can use his real accent. No, you're Spanish. Like instead of hiring someone from Spain.
Well, it's like, I mean,
Sean Connery is amazing, but
he plays it with all the versatility that he plays the Russian commander in Hunt for Red October.
Anyway, this is a long tangent. So, back to getting it on, getting to know MacLeod very well. He was not an exceptional boy in any way, not particularly good at books or games. but he suited me.
I'll bet he did.
He's dumb but pretty.
He was exceptional in one way.
The school was a large one, as was McLeod. Merry Christmas.
Oh, fuck. We're never going to get through this story.
Nope. The school was a large one. There must have been from 120 to 130 boys there as a rule, and so a considerable staff of masters was required. Damn. And there were rather frequent changes among them. One term, perhaps it was my third or fourth, a new master made his appearance. His name was Samson. He was a tallish, stoutish, pale, black-bearded man. I think we liked him. He had traveled a good deal and had stories which amused us on our school walks, so that there was some competition among us to get within earshot of him. I remember, too, dear me, I have hardly thought of it since then, that he had a charm on his watch chain that attracted my attention one day, and he let me examine it. It was, I now suppose, a gold Byzantine coin. There was an effigy of some absurd emperor on one side. The other side had been worn practically smooth, and he had cut on it?
He had.
It is so funny when you see things that you just say in your normal life, because we repeat words all the time to, like, tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see it written, this is just like, it's like, uh-oh. Glitch in the Matrix. It's like he had cut on it.
It's the past tense of the past tense.
Yeah.
English is idiotic.
English is terrible. And the fact that we are the only people who don't speak other languages is absurd, because people all around the world learn English. And it's the hardest language in the fucking world to learn because it has no rules. It has quote unquote rules.
A grammatically correct sentence in the English language is buffalo, 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 buffalo.
What?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Just know that a sentence comprised entirely of the word buffalo is a grammatically correct sentence.
Oh, man. English. I blame the British. It's not our fault. I mean, we fucked it up more because we have, made it sound not so pretty. But, here we are. All right. So, okay, had. The other side had been worn practically smooth, and he had cut on it, rather barbarously, his own initials. There it is. GWS. And a date, 24 July, 1865. Yes, I can see it now. He told me he had picked it up in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul. But Constantinople because it's Istanbul, not Constantinople.
So if you've got a date in Constantinople, they'll be waiting in Istanbul.
That's true. Maybe that's what this story is about, yeah. It was about the size of a florin, perhaps rather smaller. Well, the first odd thing that happened was this. Samson was doing Latin grammar with us. One of his favorite methods, perhaps it is rather a good one, was to make us construct sentences out of our own heads to illustrate the rules he was trying to make us learn. So he was making them come up with a lesson plan. He's like, oh my God, I have to speak Latin in this story?
Yes!
Fuck!
We avoided French.
So far. Oh, shit. Oh, come on. My dad spoke Latin in Catholic. Like, my dad actually attended Mass when it was still, like, partially in Latin in Eldora. Yeah. Of course, that is a thing which gives a silly boy a chance of being impertinent. There are lots of school stories in which that happens, or anyhow, there might be. But Samson was too good a disciplinarian for us to think of trying that on him. Now, on this occasion, he was telling us how to express remembering in Latin, and he ordered us each to make a sentence bringing in the verb mimini. I remember.
Memini?
Memini? Remember? Memini? I remember. This is going to be hilarious. Now I get what he's saying. So you have to make it a sentence. So if you were like, if the verb you were, if like the word you were learning was, or if you were conjugating, and it was to thrust. Boys, if you did that to them, they'd be like, to thrust. Yeah, they'd make it dirty. But they're like, we won't do that to Samson. We do that to other teachers, but not to him. All right. Well, most of us made up some ordinary sentence such as, I remember my father, or he remembers his book, or something equally uninteresting. And I dare say a good many put down memino liberum meum, and so forth. Look it up.
Memino librum meum?
Yeah.
Huh.
What's it mean?
Well, like the third hit is A School Story by M.R. James.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I remember my book.
I remembered my book. So it's like, he just went, I remember my book. Memino librum meum, and so forth. But the boy I mentioned, MacLeod, was evidently thinking of something more elaborate than that. The rest of us wanted to have our sentences passed and get on to something else, so some kicked him under the desk, and I, who was next to him, poked him and whispered to him to look sharp. But he didn't seem to attend. He's like the kid that you're like, just fucking say it and get on it.
Just do the assignment.
Yeah.
Please don't make us work harder than we have to.
You're gonna get us in trouble.
You dick.
But he didn't seem to attend. I looked at his paper and saw he had put down nothing at all. So I jogged him again, harder. Jogged him. Poked him. See? The friendship continues. So I jogged him again harder than before and upbraided him sharply for keeping us all waiting. That did have some effect. He started and seemed to wake up, and then very quickly he scribbled about a couple of lines on his paper and showed it up with the rest. As it was the last, or nearly the last, to come in, and as Samson had a good deal to say to the boys who had written Mimiscius Patrio Mio, and the rest of us, I like that my Latin's turning into, like, Italian.
Well, it basically is.
It basically is.
Patri.
That sounds like something from church.
I remember my father.
Oh, Patri. Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit. That's why. Okay. And the rest of us, it turned out that the clock struck 12 before he had got to MacLeod. And MacLeod had to wait afterwards to have his sentence corrected. There was nothing much going on outside when I got out, so I waited for him to come. It's always nice to wait for them to come.
Kind.
He came very slowly.
That happens.
I mean, they're young. They're the vitality.
I'm actually surprised it took a long time at that age.
I mean, apparently they've been friends for a long time. It's been 3 or 4 semesters, yes. He came very slowly when he did arrive, and I guessed there had been some sort of trouble. Well, I said, what did you get? All right, here we go. Here comes the Scottish. Oh, I don't know. That's Irish. I got to... If I'm gonna do Scottish, you got to get to the R's. Scottish R's. There we go. Okay. Oh, I don't know. That's close. Oh, I don't know, said MacLeod. Nothing much, but I think Samson rather... It's Irish Scottish, who knows? But I think Samson's rather sick with me. Why, did you show him some rot? No fear, he said. It was all right as far as I could see, as it was like this. Memento, that's right enough for remember. And it takes a genitive, memento punitive. I can't believe I'm speaking in a Scottish accent, reading fucking Latin, this podcast, man. Memento puniti intra quattuor taxos.
I remember the well between the 4 taxes.
What?
That is what Google Translate says it means.
All right, well, let's find out. Apparently...
Memento pute inter quattuor taxos.
"What silly rot," I said. "What made you shove that down? What does it mean?" "That's the funny part," said McLeod. "I'm not sure what it does mean. All I know is it just came into my head and I corked it down. I know what I think it means because just before I wrote it down, I had a sort of picture in my head. I believe it means, 'Remember the well among the four.'" "What are those dark sort of trees that have the red berries on them?" "Mountain ashes, I suppose you mean." "I never heard of 'em," said McLeod. "No, I'll tell you, yous." "Well, what did Samson say?" "Why, he was jolly odd about it. When he read it, he got up and went to the mantelpiece and stopped quite a long time without saying anything, with his back to me. And then he said, without turning round and rather quiet, 'What do you suppose that means?' I told him what I thought, only I couldn't remember the name of the silly tree, and he wanted to know why I put it down, and I had to say something or other, and after that, he left off talking about it and asked me how long I'd been here and where my people lived and things like that, and then I came away. But he wasn't looking a bit well." Ooh, there's like a ghost that lives down by these trees or something.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that's what the date is on the coin.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, ooh, like a boy died there and he haunts it or something. Okay. "I don't remember any more that was said by either of us about this. And next day, McLeod took to his bed with a chill or some. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Or something of that kind, and it was a week or more before he was in school again. And as much as a month went by without anything happening that was noticeable. Whether or not Mr. Sampson was really startled, as McLeod had thought, he didn't show it. I'm pretty sure, of course, now that there was something very curious in his past history, but I'm not going to pretend that we boys were sharp enough to guess any such thing. Stupid boys. There was one other incident of the same kind as the last which I told you. Several times since that day, we had to make up examples in school to illustrate different rules. But there had never been any row except when we did them wrong. At last there came a day when we were going through those dismissal things which people call conditional sentences, and we were told to make a conditional sentence expressing a future consequence. We did it, right or wrong, and showed up our bits of papers, and Samson began looking through them. All at once, he got up, made some odd sort of noise in his throat, and rushed out by a door that was just by his desk. We sat there for a minute or two, and then, I suppose it was incorrect, but we went up, I and one or two others, to look at the papers on his desk. Of course, I thought someone must have put down some nonsense or other, and Samson had gone off to report him. Someone wrote down, "You're a stupid bitch whore." He just
which
gets
would
up
be
and,
impressive in Latin.
It would be. I mean, let's be fair. When young boys or young girls are learning a foreign language, the first thing they do is look up the naughty words. At least I did.
It's the best way to learn.
All the same, I noticed that he hadn't taken any of the papers with him when he ran out. Well, the top paper on the desk was written in red ink. Oh, shit.
Uh-oh.
Some red rum shit, which no one used. Oh, no. And it wasn't in anyone's hand who was in the class. They all looked at it, McLeod and all, and took their dying oaths that it wasn't theirs. Then I thought of counting the bits of paper, and of this I made quite certain that there were 17 bits of paper on the desk and 16 boys in the form. Ghost student. Well, I bagged the extra paper and kept it, and I believe I have it now. Ooh, he still has it? Ooh, that's cool. And now you will want to know what was written on it. It was simple enough and harmless enough. I should have said, Si tu non veneris ad me, ego venam ad te, which means, I suppose, if you don't come to me, I'll come to you.
Oh, shit.
Oh, fuck. That's creepy as hell. Could you show me the paper? Interrupted the listener.
Finally, our narrator
We haven't
speaks
heard
again.
him again in a long time. Well, yes, I could, but there's another odd thing about it. That same afternoon, I took it out of my locker. I know for certain it was the same bit, for I made a finger mark on it, and no single trace of writing of any kind was there on it.
Ooh.
I kept it, as I said, and since that time I've tried various experiments to see whether sympathetic ink had been used, but absolutely without result. What's sympathetic ink?
Disappearing ink.
Disappearing ink?
So that, like, if you
Yeah.
apply heat or whatever,
Yeah.
it'll show up again.
Kind of like in National Treasure.
Yeah.
Because that's what I use for all actual, scientific methods of that kind of thing.
Yeah. Any Nick Cage movie will give you really good science.
It's true. Snap out of it. All right. So much for that. After about half an hour, Samson looked in again, said he hadn't felt very well, and told us we might go. He came rather gingerly to his desk. Oh, he's a redhead. Good. He came rather gingerly to his desk and gave just one look at the uppermost paper, and I suppose he thought he must have been dreaming. Anyhow, he had no questions. That day was a half-holiday, and next day Samson was in school again, much as usual. That night, the third and last incident in my story happened.
I have often wondered why the term ginger means
Quickly?
cautious.
Oh.
Gingerly. To
kind of
return gingerly is to return cautiously. And, well, not to spread stereotypes, but gingers are not well known for being cautious.
What are you talking about? I am so cautious about everything I do and say. We, McLeod and I, slept in a dormitory at right angles to the main building. Samson slept in the main building on the first floor. There was a very bright full moon. Ooh, awesome. At an hour, which I can't tell exactly, but sometime between 1 and 2, I had woken up by somebody shaking me. 'Twas McLeod, and a nice state of mind he seemed to be in. "Come," he said. "Come, there's a burglar getting in through Samson's window." As soon as I could speak, I said, "Well, why not call out and wake everybody up?" No, he said. I'm not sure who it is. Don't make a row. Come and look." Naturally, I came and looked, and naturally, there was no one there. I was cross enough and should have called McLeod plenty of names. Only, I couldn't tell why. It seemed to me that there was something wrong, something that made me very glad I wasn't alone to face it. We were still at the window looking out, and as soon as I could, I asked him what he had heard or seen. "I didn't hear anything at all," he said. "But about 5 minutes before I woke you, I found myself looking out at this window here, and there was a man sitting or kneeling on Samson's windowsill and looking in, and I thought he was beckoning." "What sort of man?" McLeod wriggled. "I don't know," he said, "but I can tell you one thing. He was beastly thin, and he looked as if he was wet all over." Gross. "And yeah, he drowned." "Oh, ew. And he said," looking round and whispering as if he hardly liked to hear himself, "I'm not sure at all if he was alive." Ew. We went on talking in whispers some time longer, and eventually crept back to bed. No one else in the room woke or stirred the whole time. I believe we did sleep a bit afterwards, but we were very cheap next day. I like that
I
phrase.
like that turn of phrase.
I like that turn of phrase for like not well slept or
Yeah.
very tired. I'm feeling very cheap today.
Feeling really cheap today. That's not an offer. I'm just.
And next day, Mr. Sampson was gone, not to be found. And I believe no trace of him had ever come to light since. Ew.
Did you dredge the lake?
Oh my gosh. In thinking it over, one of the oddest things about it all has seemed to me to be the fact that neither MacLeod nor I ever mentioned what we had seen to any third person whatsoever. Of course, no questions were asked on that subject, and if they had been, I am inclined to believe that we could not have made any answer. We seemed unable to speak about it. That is my story, said the narrator. The only approach to a ghost story connected with a school that I know, but still, I think, an approach to such a thing. The sequel to this may perhaps be reckoned highly conventional, but a sequel there is. And so it must be produced.
I'm just saying, they don't usually have a sequel.
Yeah, because this one's real. It's not a. This one's not an urban legend. There had been more than one listener to the story, and in the latter part of the same year, or of the next, one such listener was staying in a country house in Ireland. Oh, good. Oh, good. Now we're in Ireland. Hitting them all.
So now we can hear the difference between your Scottish and your Irish.
Awesome. One evening, his host was turning over a drawer full of odds and ends in the smoking room. Suddenly, he put his hand upon a little box. "No," he said, "you know about old things. Tell me what that is." My friend opened the little box and found in it a thin gold chain with an object attached to it. He glanced at the object and then took off his spectacles to examine it more narrowly. "What's the history of this?" he asked. "Odd enough," was the answer. "You know the yew thicket in the shrubbery? Well, a year or two back, we were cleaning out the old well that used to be in the clearing there. And what do you suppose we found?" "Is it possible that you found a body?" said the visitor with an odd feeling of nervousness. "We did that. But what's more, in every sense of the word, we found two." Oh, God, gross. Good heavens, two? Was there anything to show how they got there? Was this thing found with them? It was. Among the rags and the clothes that were one of the bodies. A bad business, whatever the story of it may have been. One body had the arms tight round the other. They must have been there 30 years or more, long enough before we came to this place. You may judge we filled the well up fast enough. Do you make anything of what's cut on that gold coin you have there?" "I think I can," said my friend, holding it to the light. But he read it without much difficulty. It seems to have been GWS, 24 July, 1865. The
Chung chung.
Ew! Ew! Creepy yuck yuck.
You know what? MR is really good at a ghost story.
That was a twist.
He crafts a good story.
He really does. He's really good at ghost stories. I also love that the first story we ever read of his was called The Wailing Well at a school.
Yep,
And
and
this
it's
one
back to another well.
also is about a well. I'm guessing wherever M.R. James went, they had a well at his school
with
that
some
was
haunted
spooky,
stories. Yeah.
spooky stories. And this was his inspiration. Also, isn't The Ring? The Ring has a well.
Oh, like the movie?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole. You've seen The Ring, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have.
That's the whole thing. Is
I know.
that
She
the ring is the well
and she
getting
comes
covered.
out of the
Yeah.
well because she fell in the well.
Yeah.
And, ew, yuck, ew.
That's why she's all wet.
Ew, and this guy's all wet and sticky and gross. Anyway, that was good. Yay, spooky, scary ghost story on Christmas.
And I suppose spoilers for the movie The Ring if you haven't seen it yet.
If you haven't seen it yet, I mean, it's a good movie.
Uh-huh.
It's a good scary movie, I will say. I think there's like 12 of them now, but
Yeah.
the OG and the Japanese one. I've actually seen the one from Japan.
What's it called? Ringu?
Ringu. Yeah, Ringu or something. I actually saw that one too. So they're both very good.
Yay.
Nice. Yay. I love an M.R. James scary
Yeah.
story. It's great.
There's a reason we keep bringing him back.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And so happy holidays to all. And there's your spooky Christmas ghost story. Thank you, British people.
I hope you enjoyed that story, listeners, and I hope you are starting to settle into a ghost story at Christmas being part of your regular tradition.
I hope you enjoyed all my mini dialects, and I hope I, as usual, did not offend anyone. As we said, we just do this off the cuff.
Yeah. Cool. So it is likely that we will be taking next week off. Just to give you a heads up, please don't hate us for taking some time off. It's just going to be a very busy week, but we will look forward to seeing you, hearing from you in the meantime. And go ahead and let us know what you thought of this episode of Ghost Stories for Christmas generally. Do you have any favorite holiday traditions, whatever they may be, that have nothing to do with literature or ghost stories? And do you have a line on that funny little suitcase record player?
I want it.
Write in and let us know. You can email us at 5050artsproduction@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media by searching for Campfire Classics Podcast. When you write in, go ahead and use this week's secret passcode. He came very slowly.
Sometimes it's good slow, sometimes it's good fast. You just gotta be aware of the other. Or yourself, I guess.
Just awareness. Awareness is key.
Is key.
That's everything I got. Anything from you?
No, I think that's it. And
Great.
if we don't talk to you before the new year, happy fucking 2025.
Ooh, let's see
the
what that
hell?
one brings us.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're getting married, so there's that.
Yeah, that's what it'll bring us.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all from us this week, and I suppose this year. So until next time, this has been Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
Ding dong merrily on high. We'll play with your ding dong. But don't